Hundreds of people in the valley say they are hearing voices in their heads. And those voices are being transmitted by microwave or other methods.
Well, several viewers asked us to investigate what they call electronic harassment. KMIR 6's Angela Monroe joins us now with what she's discovered. Angela.
Electronic harassment, synthetic telepathy, voice-to-skull technology. Chances are you haven't heard of these terms, but after searching the internet, I found dozens of websites dedicated to the phenomenon and several Valley residents who say they're victims.
How much more can you invade me than to go into my brain?
It sounds like somebody else is reading the book, only it's thoughts.
We're not having a group hallucination. This is actually something that's happening.
These men all live in the area, didn't know each other before the voices started, and say someone is playing mind games with them.
Mostly it's a lot of derogatory comments about whatever you're thinking about.
Only time I ever had a whole sentence, he said, "This is not about you," which just frosted me. If it's not about me, what the hell am I going through all this for?
Kevin Bond says he used to have a normal life.
I was living in the San Diego area. I was clerking for a federal judge, and I noticed that I was being followed by a whole bunch of people.
According to the websites, what Bond is describing is called gang stalking. He moved to Palm Springs to escape.
I started hearing, as you'll hear, hearing voices, and what they'll call voice-to-skull or microwave hearing.
Bob Stansfield says his experience was similar and started a decade ago.
They were active in following me around here, and I started hearing the voices a little bit after the vehicular stalking.
Randall Ringer says the voices started when he was undergoing chemotherapy.
The first thing that was said was, "Randall Ringer." And I sat up straight and I went to into the bathroom, and I looked in the mirror, looked myself in the eyes, and I said, "Did that really happen?"
Bond says he's found more than 300 victims locally and is tracking others across the state through billboards. In Johnson Valley, a Freedom House just opened to help people who believe they are being targeted.
To many of you who find yourselves the object of covert harassment, that there is hope and that you are not alone, and that we are striving to find legislation and we're working towards freedom for all.
Derek Robinson leads a national group called Freedom from Covert Harassment and Surveillance. He says he knows who's playing mind games.
Rogue government officials that are sponsoring this, also corrupt business officials, and private citizens.
And he also told us how.
Most of it is delivered by microwave, and I believe it's satellite delivered, whether someone is on a remote location using a laptop or next door using the desktop.
Bond says neurotransmitter chips that run off body electricity have been inserted into some people.
And they assign cell phone numbers to them. The cell phone numbers are then run through a computer, and a computer translates your thoughts. This crime has been available to the military for 60 years.
Cynthia Verbeff is moving. Her home, she says, has become a house of horrors.
I feel that I've lost my mind, I've lost my life.
Incident reports from law enforcement tell the tale. Numerous break-ins at the address, vandalism to her car, her motorcycle, her computer. Verbeff believes she's being targeted.
Everything, they just went through everything.
But sheriff's detectives had little to go on because the vandals, though often destructive, stole nothing. Even from her portable safe, drilled into and torn apart, the contents, the jewelry, remained untouched. Verbeff says her troubles didn't start until she met these two men. One would become her ex-boyfriend, the other was his partner in a San Antonio pain clinic, Dr. John Hall.
Very first time I met him, we went to his house on 4th of July, and he told me that because I was already there in his house, I would be the next victim, that I was going to be stalked.
Verbeff found the doctor's prophecy to be correct. She suffered months of oddness.
Coming in through the front door, and I touch the doorknob, and it just falls into pieces.
Lights left on, doors open, furniture moved, her clothes dryer disassembled. Her friends say they noticed the strange happenings. They tell the I-Team they even witnessed a gas oven left turned on.
As soon as you walk in the house, you'd smell gas in the house. So the whole house smelled from gas. So immediately turned it off and opened up the doors. But, I mean, that thing doesn't just turn on by itself. And it had been running for a good length of time.
Or the time Verbeff and a friend say they were stalked at a mall.
I saw him following us to several stores, and I would see the man close to us, looking at us.
The girls had the presence of mind to snap a photo with their phone. Verbeff says all these happenings culminated in an assault. The 39-year-old believes someone drugged the food in her home and returned later to rape her.
I know something happened to me because a woman knows.
She filed a report and was briefly hospitalized with signs of sexual assault. Dr. Hall says what Verbeff describes is known as gang stalking. Indeed, he writes about it in his book, A New Breed, Satellite Terrorism in America. Verbeff is not alone. Others in San Antonio have contacted the I-Team and described similar types of occurrences.
The urine arsenic is above normal. We shouldn't have arsenic.
Linda Johnson says someone poisoned her water supply with heavy metals in northwest San Antonio. Then there's her story about the bracelet that went missing, then reappeared. Police, she says, have stopped listening to her. And like Verbeff, she too believes she's been sexually assaulted, although she never filed a police report.
I've gone to doctors many times, and I've been to the Rape Crisis Center for counseling, yes.
Many of these so-called victims of what Hall describes as gang stalking meet up on the internet, finding comfort and information from others who say they too suffer from electronic stalking, mind control, and even rape. Loosely defined, gang stalking is where organized groups target and harass unwilling victims to the point of paranoia, leaving the victims to deal with skeptical family members and skeptical law enforcement.
This isn't stalking done by a former spouse or former boyfriend or someone that you know that's disgruntled at you, but stalking that's being done by total strangers in an organized fashion.
And some internet links take you here to the book mentioned earlier, written by Dr. John Hall.
The book is fact. It's not a book of fiction. What I've wrote about is an isolated story here in San Antonio.
Dr. Hall says it is a story about himself and the harassment and rapes his ex-girlfriends allegedly suffered beginning in 1996. Dr. Hall believes the people behind it are well-organized operatives using government satellite technology to terrorize him and other victims.
All voicing the same complaints: organized stalking, weird electronic disturbances going on in their homes. Most of the women are complaining of drugging and sexual assault. So it's a big national problem.
Verbeff bought the book, and what she read, she says, caused her stomach to turn, because within the chapters in the story, she found similarities to her own situation.
I pulled out the book and I started reading, and I'm like, oh my God, it's exactly what's happening.
It's like turning the pages of your own story.
Everything.
Remember the doors, windows, even the clothes dryer taken apart? Page 35, third paragraph, talks about reassembling appliances. The drugged food and rape? Page 52 talks of concealing rohypnol, the date rape drug, in drinks and food. The account in Hall's book is chilling, and the I-Team uncovered some truth to his story. San Antonio police reports indicate there was a rape reported in 2007 in the same quad of condos where one of Dr. Hall's girlfriends supposedly lived. San Antonio police say the condo rape remains under investigation. And Bexar County detectives say Verbeff's assault remains open as well. And although there are some interesting connections to Dr. Hall in the book, law enforcement won't and cannot say if Dr. Hall is even a person of interest. The I-Team thought the similarities were striking and asked him.
Could you, in fact, be the person that's creating this mess for these women?
And that's actually one of the reasons why I got out of my ex-fiance's life. To make sure that they weren't victimizing her in order to get at me.
Dr. Hall says he's been targeted by the same groups. There's mention in the book of a conspiracy by the criminals and by fellow doctors. Dr. Hall says the Texas Medical Board retaliated against him for uncovering the gang stalking. The I-Team confirmed one local hospital suspended Dr. Hall's clinical privileges for 2 months in 2006. In 2007, the Texas Medical Board ordered 2 mental evaluations of Dr. Hall. The first came back normal, but a second evaluation found a probable delusional disorder and ordered psychiatric treatment. And in 2008, Hall's license was suspended, this time when he tested positive for cocaine. In the book, he explains the operatives drugged him with cocaine periodically. Dr. Hall's medical license has since been reinstated.
If you look nationwide, almost everyone that complains of this eventually gets sent to a psychiatrist. The psychiatrists don't look into the technology. They don't do any research into whether or not any of this is possible.
With his book published, Dr. Hall is taking his message nationally. He's appeared on cable TV shows.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hall.
Late night radio.
And our guest tonight, Dr. John Hall.
And even has his own radio program in the works.
There have been several people in my midst, obviously, that have been victimized, but if you look at it on a larger scale, it is a national problem as well.
Dr. Hall says the problem is gang stalking, seeking to victimize innocent women and sully his reputation for exposing them.
We've tracked since 9/11 hate crimes of a covert and overt nature.
The covert crimes, the family says, include intense microwave radiation aimed at the house. That explains the metal panels.
I would say that since we've noticed the temperature difference in our house go down. We've noticed our health improve.
The D'Souza family includes 2 college-educated young women who say scientific instruments prove they are under attack.
The trajectories we've tracked, it's been coming from the neighbors. First, you're skeptical, but we've tracked our health, the temperature in the home. We've had blanks that are supposed to reflect microwave and radar. They're radar reflective material, and they've burned as a shield to protect against radiation, because microwave radiation is reflected off of aluminum, so it's a protective measure.
Today, the D'Souza family tried to explain to us why they did it with binders of data and electronic measuring devices, which they prove their neighbors are bombarding them with microwaves and other kinds of radiation.
If people can imagine one night that they couldn't sleep well and they woke up totally just exhausted, that's what we were experiencing every day.
What's happening is when they're burning through it.
The family says it will comply, but will continue living under thermal blankets inside the house.
The best we could do is to protect ourselves.
The news, meantime, will continue to try to convince the D'Souzas that no one here means them any harm.
It's been coming from the neighbor.
Treated like this, like I'm a non-citizen. It hurts.
Take a look at these pictures here. Scroll down a little bit. There's a bigger picture further down. It's a diagram, and it starts talking about electromagnetic effects on the human body. And it talks about psychoelectric weapons. Yeah, we've got, openly, Barack Obama spent $200 million on his brain project with DARPA. Yeah, let's see if we can hack into people's brains. Let's see if we can take away memories or implant false memories. And let's see if we can do it wirelessly. That's their big push right now. They don't want to have to, take you in and jack into the back of your neck like the Matrix, or do an operation and stick a probe into your head. No, they want to be able to do it remotely, wirelessly, without your perception. And so when you look at this diagram, they've got a human body there. And here's some of the creepy things they've got pointing at it. One of them, forced memory blanking and induced erroneous actions. Another one, forced manipulation of airways, including externally controlled forced speech. They can make you say stuff that you don't want to say. Forced nudging of arm during delicate or messy work, causing injury or spills. Forced precision manipulation of hands, sometimes synced to the forced walking visions. They give you microwave hearing. I guess so you can hear voices. Transparent eyelids. I don't know what that is. Transparent eyelids? Artificial tinnitus, ringing in your ears. All this stuff. They're bragging about how they can do this. They call it the psychoelectronic weapon effects. And they got a little footnote down there. It said, the first unclassified successful transmission of the human voice directly into the skull of a living person was performed by Dr. Joseph Sharp of the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research in 1974. Well, that was the first unclassified successful thing. Now, they've had classified stuff before that. And as I pointed out before, Michael Aquino, a creepy figure in and of himself. He kind of looks like Eddie Munster, even more so than Paul Ryan, far more so than Paul Ryan, actually. And this is a guy who openly went on the Oprah Winfrey Show talking about how he was a Satanist. He had the Temple of Set in California and things like that. But he was somebody who worked for the NSA. And he had no problem going on with all of his satanic cult stuff on the Oprah Winfrey Show. He was alleged to have committed child abuse, alleged pedophile at the Presidio in California, the military base there. He escaped prostitution. He escaped prosecution, and because he's connected with people. Again, he worked for the NSA, and he wrote a book in 1980 called Mind War. And in that book, he talked about how they could use extremely low frequency to control people, to control their minds. And you look at the stuff I just read to you. Forced memory and forced movement of arms and forced speaking and all this kind of stuff. This is way beyond the MK Ultra program, Catcher in the Rye and LSD, folks. This is far more sophisticated. They've had decades to work on this stuff. And he wrote this book called Mind War in 1980, where he said, hey, we can use extremely low frequency on people to get them to do things. And then you remember, I brought this up when we had the Navy Yard shooter, because he was shooting people. He had been complaining about voices in his head. And he carved on the stock of his gun, this is my ELF weapon, extra low frequency. And when you look at this document that they sent him about psychoelectronic weapon effects, I looked at this at the bottom, and I thought, oh, this is kind of interesting. They break stuff down to get into the auditory cortex, 15 hertz, to get into the visual cortex, 25 hertz. I mean, this is not megahertz, unless this is hertz. This is not MZ. This is hard to read on this thing. But one of them, 9 hertz. This is extremely low frequency. You know, anything that is, it has to be 20 hertz or above for you to even hear a bass note. Anything below that, if you hear it, it's just going to be clicks. So yeah, we have multiple data points here, but yeah, you're just a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist if you believe their own documents that they put out here.
November 20th, 2014. It's a day many will never forget in Tallahassee and beyond. What started out as a night of studying in a college library turned to tragedy because of one man, Myron May. May believed he was a victim of gang stalking. Well, tonight you'll hear from May in his own chilling words, pleading for anyone to understand him as we examine just what is gang stalking.
Kind of my last words. It's really unfortunate that I have to make this video. You see, I am a victim of covert harassment and electronic harassment and gang stalking. I'm what's called a targeted individual.
On November 20th, 2014, 31-year-old Myron May walks into Strozier Library on the campus of Florida State University and opens fire. 3 people are injured. May tries to leave campus, and a shootout with police in front of the library ends violently. The medical examiner confirming May was shot 24 times by police.
For now, things seem to be back to normal on campus. Students have fallen back into their routines, but it was here not so long ago on a tragic night that has many wondering what could make a man snap and lose control.
What causes a seemingly well-liked guy to plan a mass murder? Is it mental illness, or as many suggests, being a victim of gang stalking?
The goal of gang stalking is literally to drive a targeted individual crazy.
If you search gang stalking on the internet, you can find thousands of people all over the world describing similar circumstances. Those who feel they are victims of gang stalking truly believe people are out to get them.
They employ isolation tactics. They basically try to convince your family, your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers that they should be keeping an eye on you.
In a 2-hour video diary that May released before the shooting, he explains how and when he started to believe he was a targeted individual.
A constant bout of noise that is never ending is designed to keep the targeted individual on edge.
In September of 2014, while May was living in Las Cruces, New Mexico, he filed a police report. In the incident report, May told police that someone put a camera in his apartment and that he was hearing voices coming through the walls. May began to believe family and friends were in on the conspiracy to make him crazy.
I am totally not crazy. I'm completely sane, but they've employed these tactics against me as well, to try to make me appear to be a crazy person.
Tyrone Dew, an advocate and victim of gang stalking, says it's hard to prove that gang stalking is not just in your mind.
It's virtually impossible to be able to tell that someone is being attacked because we cannot see these weapons that are being used against you. We can only see the direct effects, and these effects, really seem like symptoms.
And what unfolded that Thursday morning in November is testimony of just how bad those suffering from mental illness can get. Through the entire process, Myron May believed he was being stalked.
There has been a shooting in the library. Stay where you are.
Father, forgive me for what I'm about to do. Forgive me for all of my sins. Past sins, present sins, any future sins. I'm sorry that my faith was so weak.
Amen.
Aaron Alexis, we know, had violent outbursts, run-ins with the police, and police now say he also heard voices. The father of the Navy Yard shooter also told police that his son's issues began over a decade ago when he began to suffer from what he says was post-traumatic stress disorder after the September 11th, 2001 attack.
Update on a double murder in Carrollwood that shook that neighborhood. 21-year-old Nicole Notchman brought back to Hillsborough County just hours ago to face double homicide charges. The FSU student is accused of gunning down her mom and stepfather last Thursday. Our Jacqueline Iglesias is live at the Hillsborough County Jail with some shocking new information in this case. Jacqueline?
Well, Wendy, just as Nicole Nashman was being driven into the Sally Port here at the Orient Road Jail that you see behind me, we got our hands on her very explosive arrest report.
Nicole, what happened?
21-year-old Nicole Nashman is not talking about the murders of her mother, Marion Denis, or her stepfather, Robert Denis, both gunned down last Thursday night. But this arrest affidavit speaking volumes tonight. According to deputies, the FSU student began hearing voices on campus telling her to kill her parents.
New details are emerging after a car plows into pedestrians in New York's famed Times Square. Police say the act appears to be deliberate. 2 News reporter Kelly King has the developments and what they're learning about that suspect. Kelly?
John, police say 26-year-old Richard Rojas said he was hearing voices and expected to die. Authorities say he was likely attempting suicide by cop. Rojas had been discharged from the Navy following disciplinary problems and had multiple prior arrests for driving while intoxicated. Rojas is accused of mowing down people in Times Square for 3 blocks before he was stopped by a row of steel barriers.
Well, Leicester law enforcement officials say tonight that they do not consider this an act of terrorism. They say the suspect was struggling with serious mental health issues. Officials say Esteban Santiago was undergoing treatment for mental health problems, complaining that he was hearing voices. They say a few months ago he walked into the FBI's office in Anchorage, complaining that the CIA was forcing him to join ISIS. Officials say local police were called and he went voluntarily to a mental health facility for treatment. His aunt and uncle in Union City, New Jersey, near where officials say Santiago was born, say they believe he developed problems after a military deployment overseas.
He's accused in a hostage scare that paralyzed downtown Pittsburgh. Now he says a crow told him to do it. We're learning more about what went on in the mind of Klein Faxon as police say that he held a businessman hostage for 5 hours. Channel 4 Action News reporter Bob Hazen was at his hearing just hours ago and joins us live. What are the new developments, Bob?
Well, Klein Faxon stood just a few feet away from his victim. His lawyer says he never intended to hurt that victim, and we heard a bizarre new explanation for why he started this crisis. 22-year-old Klein Faxon believed he was hearing 3 voices inside his head the day he walked into this downtown office tower. One of them he calls the Crow.
The Crow, he said, talk to him.
Thaxton's lawyer revealed that new detail to us this morning after a preliminary hearing in the case.
Voices were telling him to cause some damage, cause some harm to someone. And he kept telling the voices, no, no, no.
Thaxton was arrested almost a month ago after police say he entered the office of Charles Breitzman on the 16th floor of 3 Gateway Center and held Breitzman hostage at knife point.
He was hearing 2 different voices. A lot of people don't know that. He was hearing 2 different voices because he wasn't on his medication. And he was battling the voices.
Driven by voices, that's the claim in an investigation by the Boston Globe about accused Boston Marathon bomber Tamerlan Tsarnaev. Brian Todd is joining us right now. Brian, the report suggests he was hearing voices, that he may have had a mental illness. What's going on?
First indications of this, Wolf, from the Boston Globe's investigation that he possibly did have some mental illness. The Globe spoke to a doctor who was a family friend who had had conversations with a psychiatrist who had actually treated Tamerlan Tsarnaev's parents. The doctor, who was a family friend, speculated to the Globe that he thought that Tamerlan Tsarnaev might have had schizophrenia. The psychiatrist who treated his parents but did not treat Tamerlan Tsarnaev told the Globe, or at least said at some point, that he believed that Tamerlan Tsarnaev has some kind of paranoia. But the Globe is now reporting, quoting friends and others, as saying that Tamerlan Tsarnaev started hearing a voice in his head as a young man, and that it continued later on. That one man who went to the mosque with him was quoted as saying, quote, he was torn between those 2 people, whatever was in his head and the persona that he was in real life. So
Outside the Alvarez family home, the crime scene tape has disappeared, along with any sign of the 7-year-old boy or his father. Their neighbors remain in a state of disbelief.
Real shocking. I mean, I still can't get over it. I still can't get over it.
Now that Maisa Alvarez has gone before a judge, her arrest report is public and sheds new light on her state of mind. The affidavit says Alvarez confessed that voices told her to kill her son.
Police say that this woman is giving them several different reasons as to why and how she set this fire. Now, ultimately, investigators believe she set the fire, left, came back to the scene 3 hours later and was visibly upset, and that's when they took her in for questioning. Pittsburgh police say 42-year-old LaToya Lyerly intentionally set fire to this house in Homewood, which was being used as a boarding house. Lyerly tells police she's been living on the first floor for 3 weeks, but she doesn't have any money, so she cooked and cleaned for the owner. She says she was working for the owner Tuesday night when they got into an argument about her radio being too loud, telling police the argument became heated, and she said she was going to burn the expletive house down. By 6:20 the next morning, fire alarms went off at the neighboring home.
It was a hard fight.
Crews worked to keep the fire from spreading, but once inside, they found 2 men dead on the second floor, a third man deceased on the top floor. Police identify the victims as 56-year-old Calvin Turner, 68-year-old Gerald Johnson, and Darylyn Vance, whose age has not yet been released. Neighbors say the owner here offered several long-term boarding rooms to those in need.
She was helping homeless people. It's cold out here.
And Lyerly was one of those people. In an interview with investigators, she first denied setting the fire and then said it was accidental. But when asked again, she said the house was, quote, filled with demons, and she began hearing voices telling her to carry out her mission. She admitted to lighting paper coffee strainers on fire, setting them on furniture, and then locking the door and walking away.
Big story there. Also a big story coming out of the South today. We're getting some new information on a deadly standoff in Louisiana. Police say a 20-year-old suspect took 3 bank employees hostage yesterday. He released one, but after more than 12 hours, he shot the other 2, killing one and leaving the other in critical condition. That's when police moved in, and they killed him. Now we're learning more about the suspect. Police say he suffered from paranoid schizophrenia and believe something had been implanted in his head.
Newport police tell us they came here to the Marriott a month ago for a harassment call. According to the police report, the man we now know as the Navy Yard shooter said people were following him. He was hearing voices and they were putting vibrations in his body to keep him awake. Newport police say they responded to the Marriott Hotel early in the morning on August 7th. Aaron Alexis told police he was a naval contractor who traveled often. Alexis told the officer he had a verbal fight with someone at the airport in Virginia as he was getting on a flight to Rhode Island. And that person sent 3 people to follow him and keep him awake by talking to him and sending vibrations into his body. Alexis left a Middletown hotel, went to a Navy base hotel, but still heard the voices. He escaped to a 3rd hotel, the Marriott, but the voices continued. Alexis told the officer the 3 individuals were speaking to him through the floor and using some sort of microwave machine to send vibrations through the ceiling, penetrating his body so he cannot fall asleep. A Newport police sergeant contacted Naval Station Police, which said it would follow up and determine if Alexis was a naval base contractor. Today, Alexis's employer, The Experts, confirms the 34-year-old information technology employee worked for them for 6 months over the last year, and that his most recent background check and security clearance in June revealed no issues other than 1 minor traffic violation.
There are questions growing also about the warning signs missed. People who knew the 19-year-old shooter say he had a troubled past and disturbing social media posts. Our chief national correspondent Tom Yamas is in Fort Lauderdale, and Tom, there's focus now on a tip to the FBI.
That's right, George. There was a tip to the FBI, and it involved social media, but the agency says they did not have enough information at the time. Now, regardless of that, we've been digging into Nicholas Cruz's background, and what we've been told is about a long struggle with mental illness and a history of violence. This morning, authorities describing the mind of alleged shooter Nicholas Cruz as warped and possibly demented. Law enforcement sources tell ABC News the 19-year-old gunman told investigators he heard voices in his head directing him to conduct the attack.
Yeah, these demons are everywhere, man. Everybody in this mall is a demon. So there comes security right there, probably to intimidate me or something. So yeah, you see that woman pointing her finger on her chin, making a pyramid and pointing her finger, saying she's one with Satan and the Illuminati. And also that kid earlier, who was, pointing his finger a bunch of times too. So. I see that lady right there just made a pyramid right there. See, that kid just made a pyramid right there. I don't know, it seems like since I messed with my phone or something, it seems kind of out of focus or something, but... See that woman right there just threw something in the trash can right next to me, make a loud noise right there. Sure. Actually, I'll pass. Thanks, though. All right. Hear how loud that is right there? That banging noise? Yeah, Satan can, make things louder, since we live in a matrix. So when somebody's chopping stuff, you can make it louder, and it just really sucks, hearing them like constantly banging around and stuff with things everywhere I go, so.
At just 12, these two girls nearly took another classmate's life. Last May, they lured her to a wooded area where police say they stabbed her 19 times. Video of their interrogation being made public for the first time.
Who stabbed her first?
I think Anissa stabbed her first, and then I continued, and then she was like, Morgan, make sure she doesn't escape. She told me that she got her in the lung right here 6 times, and then in the leg a few times.
The criminal complaint says the victim, who was also 12, was badly wounded. One knife strike coming so close to her heart, the criminal complaint says she was 1 millimeter away from certain death. Still, she survived. Not exactly how her attackers, Anissa Weir and Morgan Geyser, were hoping this would end. Listen.
So we told her we were gonna get help, but we really weren't. We were gonna run and let her pass away. So we ran.
The girls also told detectives how they each took part in the stabbing. This is their supply list. Notice the kitchen knife?
So then how did you get the knife from Anissa?
She sort of just shoved it into my hand, and there it was. And then I didn't know what I did. It sort of just happened. It didn't feel like anything. It was like air.
Incredibly, the victim managed to crawl out of the woods. A bike rider found her and got her to the hospital. The young suspects were arrested soon after, both charged as adults with attempted first-degree intentional homicide. When investigators asked why they did it, they both had the same answer: Slenderman. And this is where a violent and nearly murderous act becomes simply bizarre. Slenderman is a fictional internet monster, a ghoul who lurks in chat rooms and some of the internet's darkest corners. He's faceless, often portrayed in a dark suit with octopus-like tentacles. Slenderman is believed to haunt children and those who look to expose him. Police say the two attackers said they first encountered Slenderman on the website Creepypasta Wiki. They thought he was real, police say, and that if they didn't kill their classmate, then Slenderman would hurt them or their families.
When you guys were walking, you thought you saw Slender as you were walking? This was after Morgan stabbed her. And he has tendrils that are very sharp.
Do you see him in your dreams, or where do you see him at?
Oh, I've seen him in my dreams.
Evidence presented in court shows what was found in Morgan Geyser's bedroom: dozens of disturbing drawings and numerous disfigured Barbie dolls, many with the Slenderman symbol on them. All proof, the defense team says, the girls truly believe Slenderman is real.
Truth be told, I wanted to be locked up so that I couldn't hurt her, but that time has passed, and now I'm in here because we were careless. I knew this would happen. I knew we'd get in trouble.
Well, and I asked about what type of chemical did he ingest from that couple's garage that night. His answer was, I don't want to talk about that, or I can't talk about that. Yet he was open about everything else.
Did you leave that restaurant wanting to hurt anyone?
No. No.
Why did you do it?
I don't know. I don't know. If I knew, I would tell you.
This Skype interview with Austin Harif and Dr. Phil took place while Harif was inside his hospital room and before he was arrested or charged. He's accused of randomly murdering a Martin County couple in an unprovoked attack in their garage back in August and then chewing on the face of one of the victims. He's also accused of attacking an innocent bystander who tried to help. A toxicology report showed Harif was not on the synthetic drug Flakka.
Do you think you're mentally ill?
I guess so. I didn't know, though.
Harif would go on to say on the night of the attack he heard a voice and doesn't remember taking off his pants or exactly what happened. He also apologized to the victim's family on camera.
Look into the camera right now, and if they're watching, what do you say to them?
I'm sorry for their loss, and I hope that you can find it in your heart to forgive me. And I'm so sorry, and I never wanted this to happen.